For me, science is in everything and it's everywhere. And it is creative and it is curious and it's about problem solving and it's about collaboration.
Hello there, I'm Sarah McCluskey and this is Research Adjacent. Each episode I talk to amazing research adjacent professionals about what they do and why it makes a difference. Keep listening to find out why we think the research adjacent space is where the real magic happens. So today's guest is Lorraine Coghill, another former colleague. Now, if you're getting the impression that I started this podcast by twisting the arms of lots of friends and colleagues, then you would be absolutely right. But they are also all brilliant at their jobs and deserve more recognition. And Lorraine is no exception. She's the Deputy Director of Science Outreach and Engagement at Durham University. And there she organises a whole host of science enrichment activities for young people and teachers, as well as training for staff and students. She also loves putting young people in charge, whether that means co-creating an award-winning theatre piece or planning an entire science fair. As you'll hear, although she has worked on some impressive projects, what really gets her out of bed in the morning are the individual stories of transformation. Listen on to hear more. Welcome along, Lorraine. Thanks for joining us today. I wonder if we could start off by if you could just tell us a bit about what it is that you do and how you got into doing that kind of work.
Oh, well, it's fantastic to be here. Thank you so much for asking me, Sarah. So, how do I describe what I do? So I wear lots of different hats and do lots of different things. But in essence, I think what I do is really just about people, and it's about supporting people to engage with others and collaborate with others, whether that be researchers, whether that be teachers, young people, community groups. It's about forming those relationships and helping people to kind of have something that means something to everybody.
Fantastic. And how did you get into doing that work? What was your journey?
Well, for me, it was actually, I was very, very lucky when I was doing my PhD. I did quite a lot of teaching and I really enjoyed that element of it. But being up in Edinburgh, there was a real big culture of engaging with the public. I mean, at that time it was awful. It was that terrible title of Public Understanding of Science type thing.
Oh, yes. Not the greatest acronym. Yeah.
The worst acronym ever. But there was things, like the science festival happening and debates going on. I just found that there was lots of opportunities to volunteer, but also to get paid to do things. Just got more and more involved in those and decided that although I love doing research, I really enjoyed it. Actually, my true passion was the people aspect and that engagement. So that led me on to working in science centres and universities and with community groups and all sorts of different things as well. So it was a bit of a kind of long path into it.
And so your focus is still mainly on science, isn't it?
Yes, but for me, I stand on a wee bit of a soapbox with this. I'm definitely in the science camp, but for me, science is in everything and it's everywhere. And it is creative and it is curious and it's about problem solving and it's about collaboration. There's so many different aspects of it rather than perhaps that kind of traditional idea of it just being this lone worker kind of in a lab, if you like. And so for me, it's science, but that can be like working with artists. It can be working with theatre producers or animators, about working with young people. It's just that kind of inquiry and that curiosity, bringing everything together.
Yeah. You talked there about some really interesting people that you've worked with. Would you like to maybe tell us about a couple of projects that you've done that you're really proud of?
Oh, this is where it's tricky because then who do you choose? Oh, I'm constantly amazed and inspired by people. I'm going to go back quite a few years to a project that I worked on with the wonderful Katie Milne, who's right up here in the Northeast and does lots of creativity things. And what was really great about that is that both of us, she comes from the art side and I come from the science side, but actually our thinking is very similar. We're very much about sort of young person focus and supporting people to develop their own ideas to have agency, to be okay with being curious and investigating things. So our kind of first working together, we developed a program and a project where we brought together researchers from lots of different areas in
Yeah.
science. We brought together young people
Mm-hmm.
who were amazing, gave up so much of their time. They were brilliant. We brought a theatre production company
Yeah.
as well. And the whole idea is that we wanted them to produce something, but we weren't going to tell them what it was. And so they all had to, nobody was in charge.
Yeah.
So they kind of investigated and found stuff out. And it wasn't about the scientists going, I'm going to tell you this. It was much more about investigating stuff together. And the final thing that they did, it blew me away. They produced an interactive theatre piece,
Mm-hmm.
which was performed by professional actors, but it involved the whole audience. And it brought so many different aspects of the researchers' work, but also the lives of the researchers, the lives of the young people. And it was quite an emotional piece. It's just wonderful. And so I'm always very thankful to Katie because she challenges me
Yeah.
and she always makes me do things better, which is great.
Sound like a brilliant person to work with. Was that kind of captured in any way? Does it exist anywhere that people could go and look at, or are there photographs or videos or?
Yeah, so we didn't video the whole piece.
Mm-hmm.
It was different every time it was performed. But yeah, we did. We evaluated it. And it's actually, I think, still on the NCCP's website as a case
Great.
study.
Oh, well, we'll see if we can get a link to that and we'll put it in the show notes. People can go and have a look. Yeah,
No, that's
that'd be
great.
brilliant. And are there any other projects you've done that particularly stand out for you?
Oh, gosh, so many. I've been so lucky. Again, it's
Yeah.
just it's the wonderful people that I've been lucky enough to work with. I mean, Sarah, when you sent me some idea questions
Mm-hmm.
before, and you kind of like, what programs and projects and things are you most proud of? And do you know, it was really funny because it got me thinking. It's like, I've got wonderful projects where we've worked
Mm-hmm.
with thousands of people on this, and we've engaged so many researchers and all those kind of thing. And the more I thought about it,
Mm-hmm.
for me, it was breaking it down, and actually, it's where you see individual stories
Mm.
and individuals change or develop something or become more confident.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give an example that I think it was never perhaps the intended outcome of the project,
Mm-hmm.
but I worked alongside a youth worker and a team together. And we used to do this project where we would challenge young people
Mm-hmm.
to develop a science fair for their peers. So the idea being that those young people had to learn new skills. So they had
Yeah.
to do things like phoning companies, phoning people like you,
Oh.
mailing them, saying, we want to have an interactive activity. Could you do this? They had to do all the logistics,
Mm.
catering, the whole thing. And we used to have, hundreds of kids coming in and doing lots of different activities, but it was all run by the group of young people.
Fab.
And there was one particular group that we worked alongside who were classified as NEET, so
Mm-hmm.
not in education or training at the time. And they were really determined that they wanted a group of young people that were really facing so many life challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted them to be involved in coming along. A few years later, my colleague bumped into one of these young people who'd been
Yeah.
there. And he had admitted, he said, he wasn't living at home anymore. He was living by himself. He was,
Yeah.
and he'd been in trouble with the police. He was
Mm.
having all sorts of issues. And as a result of coming along to that day, he met a science chef.
Yeah.
And he was like, actually, I could do this.
Yeah.
And so he'd enrolled in a college course, and he was the top student in the college course
Wow.
and was going on and becoming a chef. And it might not have, the funders were into the sort of science aspect, but
Yeah.
actually for me, that's an example, like changing somebody's direction. And, I'm not necessarily a proponent that a one-off event
Yeah.
make that difference, but actually I think sometimes it can be one of those moments that can make a difference to someone's life.
Yeah. Oh, what an amazing story. And that's what we get out of bed for in the morning, isn't it?
Yeah.
We get these little stories like that. Yeah.
Might not
Oh.
happen that often, and we don't often get to find out though, do we?
No, I think that's it. You just never hear what happens, yeah, down the line. But oh, what an amazing story. Fantastic. So in doing some of these projects, I'm sure you faced some challenges along the way. So what sorts of hurdles have you had to overcome?
Oh gosh, so many. Oh, I think it depends what angle
Mhm.
I would take on this. And like I say, I think so much of what we do is based on people.
Yeah.
And so I think developing trust
Mhm.
and developing relationships that are genuinely of mutual benefit
Yeah.
is so important. And I think, it's so easy to damage that trust, and
Mhm.
it's so easy to not do something right, whether, even just through the best intentions.
Yeah.
And so I think the challenge of our sector being very short term,
Mhm.
whether that be funding, contracts, changing priorities,
Yeah.
changing staffing, I think that is such a major hurdle to doing what we do.
Yeah.
But I would also add to that, even just working at a university and the pressures that our researchers and our staff are under, and teaching, etc. So trying to get people involved and support them in the best way that we can to be involved, that can often be challenging because there's just so many barriers that come into play.
Yeah. I think it's a very common story, but nonetheless a very tricky one. Yeah. Well, maybe we can't solve, well, those problems, but maybe we can. If you had a magic wand, an unlimited budget, what would you do? What would you change?
See, this question blew my mind, Sarah. But
It's kind of the idea.
oh, yeah. So to be really selfish here,
Mhm.
I'm going to go totally for my own situation.
Go
And
for it.
yeah, so if I could change it, I would have a team
Mhm.
of specialists, and actually valued specialists who could make things happen,
Yeah.
and support doing more and doing better. But also, my less selfish bit would be that that was actually something that was elsewhere as well.
Yeah.
So that actually, as a sector, let's celebrate our professionalism. Let's celebrate what we actually do. I mean, we've talked before, Zara, about the invisibility
Mhm.
of public engagement professionals, but also the invisibility of the skills
Yeah.
that we bring. And a lot of those, because they are soft skills, because they happen in the background, they aren't celebrated and valued. And we need to do a lot more of that to really then be able to do a lot more quality engagement.
Yeah. The glue that holds everything together, I think.
Yes, the
Yeah.
invisible glue.
Invisible glue. Yes. It's a nice like invisible glue that goes
Although I don't
clear
know.
when it dries.
Oh, although I don't know how you feel about being described as a sticky stuff, but yeah, we'll go with
We
it.
can go with it. I think now, just to go on from thinking about it, you've talked about people and you've talked about, teams of people, people that you've worked with. You've already mentioned some amazing people and projects. Are there any other people who are doing great work that you would like to give a bit of a shout out to?
Oh, there are too many, and I genuinely, genuinely mean that. So I feel like I can't choose like one particular or a few. I think that the people who inspire me, and also I think get me through each day,
Mhm.
are actually some of the networks
Mhm.
that I'm part of. So I think like the amazing work that the NCCP have done and kind of raising the flag for public engagement, or whatever you want to call it, but and being kind of standing out there and working with funders, working with government, whoever, to kind of challenge it, but also be there for us as the people doing it. And also for me, my amazing colleagues across the UK from the Ogden Trust as well. So there's just such a remit of amazing things that they do in supporting. For the Ogden Trust, it's about supporting physics education and engagement.
Yeah.
And I'm not a physicist.
Don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anyone. No, but it's just, I'm not a physics researcher.
Yeah.
So they're just so open and welcoming, and they've been doing so much work recently about diversity and actually how can we get better and how can we be more inclusive in physics, but also as a sector as well. And again, they challenge me. They make my head hurt sometimes, but I love that because it makes me better at what I do.
Brilliant. Oh, thank you. We'll see if we can get some links to NCCP and the Ogden Trust as well and put in the show notes. People can track them down. So in terms of tracking down, if people want to know more about you or the work that you do, where can they find you?
So I'm going to admit that there are certain things that I am really good at. And there are certain things I'm really bad at and I want to get better. So one of the things is communicating better. What we do and how we do it. And it is definitely on my to-do list to get better. So I work for Durham University and the Science Outreach and Engagement team. So we are on the university website. Not the easiest to find.
I'll be able to find a link, and again I can put that in the,
and
show notes.
We got sort of a few projects and things up there, but it's definitely something better.
Okay, great. Everybody's working on something. So how it should be. Yeah. Well, it just remains to say thank you so much, Lorraine, for coming along and having a chat today. It's been really lovely to catch up with you, and thanks for sharing your story.
No, it's been lovely to talk to you. Thank you for letting me just talk about me.
It doesn't always happen very often in this work, does it? Yeah.
Oh, thanks so much, Sarah.
Thanks for listening to Research Adjacent. You can find show notes and other episodes at researchadjacent.com. I would absolutely love to hear what you think of the show, so please get in touch. You can drop us a message via researchadjacent.com or find us on social media at resadjacent. And if you've enjoyed the show, please think about sharing it, subscribing or leaving a review so that other people can find us too. Research Adjacent is presented and produced by Sarah McCluskey, and you, yes you, get a big gold star for listening right to the end. See you next time.